Okay, having some difficulties technology-wise, so I can't do this in multiple places, so just recording this twice. So this past weekend and this past week, I've been fighting some kind of just virus. It's not the coronavirus or anything, it's just some sinus congestion, but it just makes me tired. But I wanted to tell you about a few years ago, I was very worn out. I was super busy. I was thrown into a service capacity where I was trying to create a week-long camp for about 200 plus teenage girls with about 6 weeks lead time. Now, I had a group of amazing women who were working with me, so I was definitely not alone, and we were all probably overwhelmed trying to put this together so fast. On top of that, I was doing my normal job at, excuse me, that I had at the time. And then I was also, my kids were a lot younger back then and not in school as much. And so I had 4 small kids involved in a lot of things. My husband was going through some major work challenges at the time. So I was just really taxed and feeling like I just was putting too many things into the day. And instead of taking some things off my plate and trying to save the energy I had, I didn't have the tools that I have now. I didn't see this as a warning sign that something was going, I needed to take care of myself as I started to get sick. I just kept running, literally and figuratively. I was really proud of my exercising at the time, so I just kept doing it no matter how bad I felt. So I wasn't 100%, probably I wasn't even 50%, but I just kept pushing it. So what started off as a small cold turned into a major sinus infection and ear infection that lasted way longer than it needed to. And I can say if you've ever had an ear infection as an adult, I have a lot of sympathy for you. It was miserable. I had like so much ear pain that was just traveling down my neck. I have so much more sympathy for small children when they get ear infections now because it was awful. I finally had to just go to the Instacare on a Saturday night and get antibiotics and some painkillers. It was not fun at all. And then to top it all off, my punishment, I guess, for not really paying attention to what my body needed at the time, seeing that I was just done, I was tired, I had lingering ear issues for months after that. Constant ear popping and just clogging and autophony, so when you can hear yourself talking really like loud in your head. So that happened for many weeks after that. It was a little bit of a mess. So, my hearing was messed up for a while, but thankfully it's all back to normal. And I learned a lot from that experience and I draw on that. And so, for example, I'm not feeling great. So I have not been exercising this week other than do some stretching, just really trying to listen to what my body needs, adjust what I'm eating, drinking more, really taking the tools that I have learned when it comes to paying attention to my body and what my body's trying to tell me. And hopefully we'll be able to ride through this much faster than I did years ago. So that's kind of a lead into what I wanted to talk about today is the idea of rest or your fatigue that you're feeling being really multifaceted. It's not just, I need to sleep. That might be part of it, but there's probably a lot more in play. So I was really first introduced to this concept when I read a book by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, where she talks about rest and the different areas that we could be feeling fatigue in. So I'm going to put a link in the comments and a link in my bio with a quiz that she has on her website that takes you through the different areas of rest and kind of helps you see where you might be low and what those different areas of rest might be. So I just want to go through for today's live just the 7 areas of rest that she mentions in her studies and in her book because they were really eye-opening for me. I've always just thought about, oh, I'm tired, I need to take a nap, I need to go to bed earlier or whatever. But as I look at my fatigue now, I think, okay, where is it really? What am I really feeling? And is sleep the best way to answer that always? And the answer is no, it's not always sleep. There's a lot of other different ways to fill up your energy reserve. So the first, let me mention the 7 areas. It's spiritual, social, creative, physical, emotional, sensory, and mental. And some of these might seem a little bit interesting, kind of different. You never really thought about this as an area of rest. So I'll just go through them and definitely, again, recommend that you click on the link and go out to her website and take that quiz for yourself. It's really eye-opening to see where you're at, and then you can take it again and see if you've improved in any particular area. So the first one is physical. That one is what we tend to blame fatigue on most often is feeling physically depleted. So this is the first place that we usually go to troubleshoot. I know it's still one of the first ones I look at, because it's probably the easiest one to diagnose. I feel tired, so I probably just didn't get enough sleep last night. But it can also be, maybe you need to actually physically calm your body. It may not just be sleep. So if you're not feeling like you're going to fall asleep, you may just need to lay down and just calm your body physically. You could be doing some stretches or just going on a really calming walk, doing yoga, doing some kind of meditation, resting any sort of pent up tension in your body. So physical rest can be found not only in just sleeping, but in some of those ways. And that's ways to restore your energy in that area. The second one is social. And this is the one that I always find interesting because a lot of times when you feel like when we look at ourselves and our personality, we tend to group ourselves as, oh, I'm an introvert. Oh, I'm an extrovert. If I'm an introvert, I get energy from being by myself. If I'm an extrovert, I get energy from being with other people. And for me, the area of social rest really took on a deeper meaning when you understand it this way. So social rest is when we find comfort or energy from our relationships. So have you ever noticed that you repeatedly feel exhausted after spending time with a particular friend or a family member? But on the other hand, you might have come home from a particular activity with a different friend or got off a phone call with somebody completely different and you are energized. And as someone who might think, well, I am an introvert, so how do I get energy from that person or from that interaction? So this is where it kind of takes it to a different level. So how can you feel completely different doing the same activities? The difference is the quality of the relationship or the give and take in the relationship. So if you have a particular relationship with a person and it tends to be one where you are giving, whether it's giving emotion, you're giving sympathy, you're giving of your time, can be an energy draining relationship. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the relationship. That is the dynamic that exists in that relationship. And that is often the relationships that we tend to be in more regularly because those people need us. And so they're reaching out for our help and our assistance more regularly. So those tend to be the more regular relationships. So that might be why you're feeling like, I'm tired a lot when I interact with these people on a day-to-day basis. And that's who I interact with most of the time. So let me give you an example. I have 4 kids. And when I am constantly doing stuff with them for them in that energy giving dynamic, I'm tired. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. Parenthood, as a general rule, is an energy giving, I'm giving my energy to somebody else relationship. So don't feel bad when you realize that the energy depletion often comes from people that are closest to you. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just the type of dynamic that exists in your relationship at the time. So what you need to do when you realize that is then look for the flip side, those relationships that actually fill you up, that give you the energy back. And those might be the relationships that you have to be more intentional about. A lot of times those people aren't the ones who are looking to always constantly connect because maybe they don't need that type of energy, but you do. So a lot of times you have to be intentional about it. So the author, it gives the example of, she had 3 friends that she was really close with, and they gave her really, just interacting with them was always an energizing experience to her. But they lived across country, and it wasn't like she could connect with them daily. So they would set up a monthly Zoom call just to get that energy from each other in any kind of social filling way. So again, a lot of times the relationships that we're in that are daily, those are going to be energy depleting. They're going to take away our social energy. So you have to look for those types of interactions that fill you up and be really intentional about making those regular and figure out who those people are. Again, it's not bad if you're in an energy giving dynamic with somebody. You just need to balance it out and make sure you find those relationships that fill you up and give you energy. So the third one is creative. This one is just really interesting to me. It's just really allowing yourself kind of the white space, the energy in your life to brainstorm, to be creative in some way. I notice I don't intentionally take a lot of time to be creative. with my hands. I used to draw a lot, but I find when I do that, I do feel a different type of energy. And it is something that kind of changes my mood, changes how I feel when I allow myself to be creative and fill up that bucket. Sometimes it's just brainstorming and allowing myself to journal, or just have that the creative juices flowing in whatever way works for you. Sometimes it's just playing the piano and just feeling myself create something. So this is an interesting one. That's why I find it's really helpful to take the quiz, is it may not be one that you think about. If you're not used to focusing on like, am I actually being creative in my daily my daily work? So this just depends on what you do on a daily basis. If you're feeling creatively in a creative deficit. The next one is spiritual. I know I've talked about this in other lives, that I am a very spiritual person. So having a connection with God, with a higher power is really important to me. And so this is a key part of my coaching. A part of whole person health is having that spiritual connection. And so for me, sometimes it looks like going on a prayer walk where I feel like I'm actually talking to God and having a conversation and really filling up my spiritual reserves. I do that a lot with going on hikes by myself, so I really can just kind of leave my mind open to that relationship. And that's one way that I am able to fill up that area for myself. It could be in, scripture study of some kind, just whatever fills you up spiritually and fills that connection for you. You have to figure that out and build that into your day and figure out if that's an area that you're low in. The next one is emotional. We expend our emotional energy in many places throughout the day, whether you're angry or you're frustrated, or you lose your patience, you fight with a child or a family member or a friend. And also, I think because of the increase of accessibility to others via the internet or via our devices, emotional interactions occur more frequently than we were used to. So we're spending our emotional energy more than ever before. So to replace it, if you feel like you spent your day expending lots of types of different emotions, you need to work on bring it back in with the positive emotions. So if you feel like it's a day that's really been heavy on the negative emotions, you have to figure out what actually brings you joy. So it could just be finding a video that makes you laugh, or some kind of meme that allows you to feel the opposite of all the negative energy that you've been expending. You're able to bring in the positive energy, and that's what is going to help replace your energy bucket, or your energy bank, if you will. So this process is more the more comfortable you are with your authentic self. So whether you're okay with not meeting someone else's expectations for yourself, or how quickly you're able to process emotions, this helps you keep a better reserve. So if you're someone who really has is struggling to process emotions, this might be an area that you find yourself feeling low a lot, is your emotional energy. So if you're really stuck in the negative emotions, you're not able to process, work through them, and be done with that emotion, you're going to find that this is an area that you're going to have to really intentionally bring in some positive emotional energy. And the next one is mental. So, this one's interesting. You want to take time to quiet all the information that's constantly coming into your brain. So that's something that will fatigue you mentally. So, whether you're dealing with some kind of mental health struggle, anxiety, there's a lot of different reasons why you might feel emotionally depleted. It could be a chemical imbalance, but we all, regardless of what we're dealing with, need to take mental breaks. So reading a good book. Now, that doesn't mean a self-help book that's focusing on you got to change, you got to improve. Just a good story that allows you the break to get lost in a story and not be constantly feeling the mental fatigue. So you'll notice that you might be low on this if something that you normally wouldn't have a hard time doing just feels really heavy and difficult to do, and it takes you a lot longer. So you might be feeling some mental fatigue if that is something that you're dealing with. Meditation, or just spending a few minutes each day just being still physically and mentally, is a way to build up that mental energy reserve. And then the last one is sensory, and I find this one really interesting because of the current day and age that we live in, when we experience too much stimulus. Now that could be through physical touch, it could be through a screen of some kind, or just even noise. I remember thinking it was funny that my mom, when we would get in the car when I was younger, and she would always want to turn off the radio. I'm like, no. And I understand now exactly what she was going through. She had 5 kids and we were not quiet. And so the ability to get into a small vehicle and just have it be quiet, my mom really was probably over auditory stimulation. She just needed some quiet and some space to just not hear noise. And I am so there a lot of times during the day. So if you find that you're just avoiding some type of stimulus, whether it's physical contact or noise or a screen, that's a sign to you that your sensory energy level is low. And so you want to set aside a specific time each day to remove that specific stimulus. So I would focus on a particular sensory stressor or stimuli and just choose one way to lessen it each day. So it might be just going outside and not hearing the normal noises that happen. Or maybe just eating like a simple piece of fruit or something like that, because it's a very pure taste, if that makes sense, a pure sensory experience, just to have one simple flavor. Or just taking moments to rest in the dark. That's going to help with your visual stimuli. I notice for myself when I'm feeling really anxious and I tend to just start scrolling on my phone at different things, whether it's social media or articles or things like that, I know that I am feeling sensory depletion and I actually need to just take the phone and move it away and do something different. And so I found some ways that help fill me up. The whole goal with any of these is finding something that really does fill you up. And a lot of times the things that we turn to meet any of these different needs, they're usually just our default. So like, oh, I'm tired, I'm just going to scroll on my phone. Those are not things that actually energize you and fill you up. So what you have to do is figure out, where am I low and what are some things that are actually going to fill me up in those different areas. So again, I encourage you to take the quiz. I'll put a link to it. It's really beneficial just to see where you're at. And then pick one area that can help you re-energize. Don't go for all 7. Just feel, what is one area that you really feel a lot of focus on and like, oh, I would get a lot of benefit if I could raise my energy level in that area, and give it a shot, especially during this holiday season. Focus on the one that will help you get through it with the most joy and the most, feeling the most energized throughout the season. So have a great weekend and we'll talk soon.